and welcome back to Let There Be Light. Thank you so much for tuning in, for being here. I know you have a lot of options to choose from when it comes to what to listen to, so I'm grateful for your time and attention wherever you're tuning in from. Now, before we get started and a little bit about today's guest, I do have a bit of an announcement to make. Let There Be Light will be taking a summer break, if you will. As some of you might know, I am getting married this July, and I've decided that, and honestly, more of my schedule has decided that with the wedding planning and preparing everything, it's really just a time to step away and to be able to focus on preparing to marry my best friend. And I'm so excited about it. And I can't wait. And we're counting down the days, and I just want to be totally and completely present to that. So because of that, we are going to take a brief pause, which is hard for me to do. I have so many new listeners, and I'm so excited that you've joined and you're following along on this journey. So I just encourage you, if you're not subscribing, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because I would love for you to know when we're returning, because I promise I'm not done telling these stories yet. I really do enjoy being able to do this and have these conversations, and I've seen my own faith and spiritual life grow from it. I hope that yours certainly has as well. But just for what's best for our own sanity as we're preparing for the wedding, I really think it's just time to take a bit of a break. So we'll be back. It'll be around end of August when I will return. So again, if you're not subscribing yet, whether that's on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you know that when we return. And I'm so sorry if you're new here and I'm already taking a break, but the good news is I have over 40 incredible episodes for you to spend these next couple months catching up on, because I re-listen to those sometimes and I'm like, holy moly, wow, I really needed this today. So that's the good news about this content. It's very evergreen, trust me. Speaking from experience, I could always use that reminder about some of these individuals and the advice that they have given along the way. Now, today's guest is certainly one that has just been a dream of mine, one that I never really was sure if I would have the opportunity to do, and it was actually an encounter at my former college at Purdue University with a colleague of this individual that I was able to arrange this. So I'm so grateful that he took the time, he took this recommendation, and was able to chat with me, because again, this really is a dream guest. Today, we are chatting with Tom Monaghan. Now, Tom is one of those guys that has a bio that simply would take up the entire podcast in itself. So I actually want to shout out his biography here, Monaghan Life. This is from Joseph Pearce, and I actually read this before the interview, and I loved it. It was a page turner. I was even reading it on my lunch breaks, and people would be like, what are you reading? I'm like, where do I begin? Because Tom Monaghan just has one of those lives that it's just so many twists and turns, and you think, oh, did that really happen? Or how could that happen? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. And Joseph Pearce really does a wonderful job with this story and keeping you both engaged and inspired, and of course informative in all the details that he has of Tom Monaghan's life. So I would recommend reading this book to really get the full scope of Tom, and of course tuning into this interview. So I do have a bio of his, but again, this really doesn't scratch the surface when it comes to Tom Monaghan. Thomas Monaghan is the founder and chancellor for Ave Maria University. He is known as a wildly successful entrepreneur, the founder of Domino's Pizza, an avid collector of Frank Lloyd Wright items, and the former owner of the Detroit Tigers. If his story stops there, he might seem to fit in with other savvy entrepreneurs whose hard work and ingenuity paid off, but his greatest personal achievements came later in life when Tom decided to fully immerse himself in charitable works, Catholic philanthropy, and the call to restore Catholic higher education. And what's probably even more fascinating about Tom is really the story of how he got to where he was. He was in an orphanage, and then in and out in the foster care system, and then he was in high school, went to the seminary, and then decided to join the Marine Corps, and then tried out college, but ended up buying on a whim a pizza shop, and the rest is just history. It is such an incredible story of inspiration, of really going from rags to riches with all the yachts and the private jets to taking this vow of poverty, a millionaire's poverty, and giving his life over to the faith more than he ever had before. And what I love about the story is just hearing how Tom's spiritual life changed through all this, but also how there are some things that just stayed the same, and that you can clearly see in his foundation as a child that continued to play. The Holy Spirit was constantly at work throughout Tom's entire life, which I really enjoyed. And then, of course, he shares a lot of advice, a lot of wisdom. And what I really appreciated was, how should Catholics think about money? You know, how should we, even just as Christians, should we be trying to make money? Is the idea, you know, in the Bible, it's pretty clear, the thoughts about riches and what that does to your, the idea of you getting into heaven. And so we talk about that too, which I really appreciated. So I can ramble on and on about Tom Monaghan, but I want you to go ahead and enjoy this episode. Again, Joseph Pearce. I'll have further information about this book in the bio below. Don't forget to subscribe. Happy summer. Enjoy your summer. Know that I'll be praying for you. Please pray for me and my fiance as we prepare for our big wedding come July. And I'll see you in August as a wife.
I'm Mary Coltwriter. Welcome to Let There Be Light. Finding beauty in the broken starts right now.
Let's get ready. Let's get ready to shine. Let's get ready. Move yourself, go do that.
Well, you know what? My first question for you is actually about your physical fitness, because I watched you in a previous interview. This was 3 years ago, okay? And you had done 105 push-ups that morning. You're now 89 years old. I just want to know if you're still doing these push-ups.
No, I have a rotor cuff problem, and I can do them, but I don't want to test it.
Okay, you don't want to test it.
Yeah, I was, I think about 2 years ago, I was doing about 120.
Wow.
And I stopped shortly after that.
Okay.
I was doing over 300 a day, and I did 400 twice.
Oh, and I want people to know this was right in a row. These weren't broken up throughout the day.
Yeah, yeah. They were fast, but it's harder to do them slow.
Yeah, that's
They did it really
incredible. Incredible. Do you still use physical fitness in other areas? Are you still
yes,
doing
I
things?
exercise every day. I do a lot of stretching, and I do Stairmaster, or elliptical, or treadmill, and do weights.
I love that. What I particularly enjoyed in your books, and later in the interview, we're going to talk about your 5 principles, but seeing someone who's like living those out and is still like moving and grooving, like, yeah, I just did 100 push-ups. I mean, that was goals. Before we expand on these disciplines that led to your success, I actually want to start from the beginning, because when things started for you, it was a start to a challenging life. Your father actually died on Christmas Eve when you were just 4 years old. So would you share a bit about how that impacted you at such a young age?
Well, it was very shocking, and I was almost 5. Born on March 25th, which is the Annunciation, and exactly 9. I was in a foster home for about a year and a half. Then I went to an orphanage, Catholic orphanage, till I was about 12.
You had mentioned too in a previous interview that you do have memories of your father. You actually consider him your hero.
Oh yes, yeah, he was my hero. He was a man's man. He was a huge man, and I'm not. My mother was small, and I'm more like my mother. I was 5'9", and he was about 210 pounds, and a husky guy, and athletic. He was a semi-pro pitcher. And everything that everybody said about him was good. He had a heart of gold. He was the oldest of 7 kids. Parents divorced when he was, I think it was probably when he was about 13, 14, or 15. He dropped out of school after the 8th grade. Worked, I think he bought a used baler and was baling hay for farmers. So he's a little entrepreneurial spirit in him. And I remember a lot of instances with him. I remember swimming with him. I remember he took me to Michigan Stadium to show me the stadium. I remember we went and bought a dog. I remember being at the carnival. I remember him seeing the race with a couple of my cousins across the a barnyard, and he whipped them, and they were about 16 or 18. He was probably about 28. So he was apparently fast too, fast runner
Wow.
as well as being big and strong.
Wow.
So I remember a lot of incidents with him.
Yeah. Yeah. And was he a Catholic? Did he practice his faith?
Yes, yes. Yeah, my mother converted when they got married.
Did you find, though, that foundation from the Catholic orphanage? Is that where you credit your faith from?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. Because it was uh, a better thing to call it would be a convent
Hmm.
because it was run by about, I would say, about 8 Polish nuns. Uh, uh, I think most of them English was their second language. They were very holy. They were very strict, and we went to mass every day. Had benediction every day. Had long morning and evening prayers, uh, and uh, and everything was about God.
Hmm.
And I bought it. I wanted to be a priest at that time. I was in the second grade.
Wow. I know you said this that you wanted to be a priest who played professional baseball.
Yeah, I wanted to play baseball for the Tigers, be a priest, and be an architect.
I loved this because when I was younger, probably around the second grade, I wanted to be a nun on Broadway. So I was like, okay, I'm in TV, I'm Catholic, Catholic media, and here you are. You owned the Tigers, founded a Catholic town. I'm like, we weren't that off. We weren't that far off.
Yeah. My mother, Angelica, was a nun on TV and a
Yes.
big hero of mine, too. And I knew her quite well.
Yeah, that was beautiful hearing in your biography that relationship and looking to support her. And what an incredible partnership that I imagine you continue to have with her legacy. I'd love for you now to share, following high school, you're joining the Marines because you're realizing you have to be able to afford college, and you created the 5 priorities of life.
That it came up when I was in the Marine Corps. It
Yeah.
was a board ship, and we were stranded because we had a rudder problem. We're uh, out in the middle of the Pacific. We're working our way back to Japan, the dry dock, and had plenty of time on my hands. And I used to do this a lot, dream what I was going to do when I grew up. I mean, I was in the orphanage, the foster homes. I was kind of in a situation where uh, uh, well, I like the farm work, but I like to have a regular family like everybody else. And I figure, well, when I'm 18, I'm on my own and I can control my life. And when I'm 21, I can really do it because I can assign papers and so on. So I always dreamed of what I was going to do when I grew up. The situation I'm in now, I can't control. It's not very good, but uh, later on, when I can control it, I'm going to do. So I used to dream a lot about things I was going to do, success I was going to have, money I was going to make. And I was doing this aboard ship, and all of a sudden I got the idea, well, so what? Is this going to make me happy? Does this amount to anything? Uh,
Yeah.
and I started thinking, well, what would make me happy? What is important? And that's when I came up with the 5 priorities. And, um, and I had to get the financial one in there because I was just naturally an entrepreneur, naturally strong work ethic, but to use it for good. It doesn't do any good if I do it for myself. Uh, so the priorities were, of course, spiritual. It's not one I'm naturally inclined to. But I knew it was the most important. And I'm going to die, I'm either going to go to heaven or hell. And I'm selfish. I don't want to go to hell. So that had to be number one. So
Mm.
that goal was to be a good Catholic. That was my idea of doing God's will spiritually. Number two was social, primarily family, but relationships with others, the golden rule. And uh, and I always tried to practice that in my business. I always wanted to be nice to people. Ran my business that way. I didn't order people. I asked them.
Mm.
I treated my suppliers well. I saw a lot of other companies treat suppliers like dirt because they can get away with it. I consider them part of the family. And treated my employees well. I wanted a path for them to grow to their potential. I think in the 38 years I was in business, I never far as I know, I've never treated anybody unfairly. And I've often thought I'd rather, if there's a deal, if someone's going to get the short shrift, it should be me, not the other person.
Wow.
And that's why I tried to run my business. So that was spirit. That was the social one, but it
Social.
covers everything. They all overlap. The next one was mental. I had, I guess, above average intelligence, so I should use it. They say most people use about 10% of their capacity. I
I've heard that.
more than I think since television it was probably 5%.
Totally.
So I probably read a book a week by the time I was 8 years old.
Wow.
I'm a voracious reader. I
Wow.
don't read a lot of fiction. I read things that will help me in my priorities. I've read so much on business that business books are getting monopolies. I've read self-help books, Horatio stories, biographies, autobiographies, which inspire me. And then the last 20, 25 years has been mostly spiritual. And I
Beautiful.
probably got about 5,000 books.
Wow.
I don't know how many books I've borrowed from the library in my lifetime, but there's a lot of them.
I was going to ask if you have a big bookshelf.
Yeah, my new wife thinks I got too many books. She wants me to give them to the university. I said, do
That's
that, but I'd
funny.
like to keep them. I spend a lot of time on those books. I want
That's
to keep them
funny.
around.
That's what my fiance and I fight over. He has a theology degree and he has all these books. I'm like, we don't have room. Got to get rid of these. Okay,
Books
so
are,
that was mental,
yeah. And then the next would be physical. We kind of talked about that.
right?
Uh, I decided I want to live to I'm 100. Not that I can totally control that, but to the extent I can. Of course,
Yeah.
I'm 89 now, and I don't have any replacement parts yet. And I'm, as I said, I'm exercising every day, and I hope to do that as long as as long as I can.
Wonderful.
So I got about a little less than 11 years to go.
Wow.
So I want to get as much as I done as I can in those remaining years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
Incredible.
are my 5 priorities.
Your
And
five
the, and the,
priorities.
and the spiritual one, uh, uh, I was lucky that I really had a formation that very few people have. How many people are brought up in a convent? And I was probably the I don't know how to say this, but the star pupil. And
Hmm.
I was supposed to skip the third grade,
Yeah.
and my mother wouldn't let me. I was sort of the teacher's pet.
Hmm.
And I was an altar boy a year earlier than the other kids. Um, and I had the honor at the orphanage of cleaning the chapel. Everybody had a part of the orphanage that they had to clean every day and then all morning on Saturday. And with me, it was a chapel, and that was an honor. And so I realized later, I spent a lot of time before the Blessed Sacrament. And
Wow.
what a grace that has to be.
Right. Isn't that cool to see how the Holy Spirit was working ever since the beginning? I mean, I even think losing your father, how hard that was for you and what blessings God brought from that cross of having lost him to lead you to these sisters who are going to pave the way for you to just impact so many people. I mean, that's remarkable. Wow.
I guess I've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yeah.
people say I had a tough time. I didn't really think it was that tough because I learned to cope with just about everything that I was dealt. And
Yeah. Okay, I want you now. So we've gone to the Marines. There's so much that goes in between. People will just certainly have to read this book. But we're now in 1960. So we're in the early days. Did you ever imagine Domino's would become one of the largest pizza companies in the globe? Because I want people to know how much you bought it for.
well, it was $500 down, and we borrowed 900 from the credit union. And I did this with my brother. My brother talked me into it. He knew the owner of the place. He had a place in Ann Arbor, and he was a mailman. He stopped there for lunch every day, and they got to know. And he found out he had another place in Ypsilanti that never stayed open for more than a month or two, and he tried to sell it to my brother. My brother asked me if I'd do it with him because he was afraid to do it alone. And so I figured, well, and I said, we don't know anything about this, about the pizza business. And he says, well, I worked at a pizza place before. There's nothing to it. I found out later that he worked at a pizza place 1 month and all he did was wash dishes. So we decided, and I was struggling to stay in school, and I didn't have the money. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was between Korea and Vietnam, and for a several year period there, I didn't have the GI Bill available to me. If I had that, I'd be an architect today. But I was uh, just not able financially to stay in school. And so we thought, well, I'll do this deal and I'll work half the night, you work half the night, and I'll have time to study and sell enough pizza to pay my way through school. Well, my brother got cold feet after we signed the papers, and he said he can't give up security of his post office job. So I was stuck there to go to school. And I got to run it
Right.
myself, and I worked 7 days a week and losing money. And then one day I told my brother, "You got to give me a night off." This
Yeah.
after about 6 months. So I came in and worked one night, and uh, the next night I came in, and he stopped by and said, he said, "I want out. I don't want any part of this. You can have it. You don't have to give me anything for it." And I said, "Well, it's not worth anything. All we got is bills and debt, and we're losing money."
Yeah.
I said, "But you did take a risk. So if I take it over, I should give you something, but I don't have anything." And I looked out the window and I saw our used Volkswagen that we used for delivery, and I think we bought it with $50 down. And I said, "You take the Volkswagen, I'll keep making the payments on it." And that's how I bought 50% of the largest pizza chain in the world.
I mean, that's incredible.
And he
What
got the
a
better part of
story.
the deal
He did in that
at the
moment.
time.
In that moment. Later on, was that hard for him to be like, oh,
I don't think so. He was a happy guy.
yeah,
Yeah, uh, he was sort of a tinkerer and sort of an inventive
yeah,
electronic genius. He was always tinkering with things,
yeah.
and he was always happy. Uh, Delightful guy. He died about 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, but that must have been so cool for him to watch you just like crush it in the pizza business.
Yeah, and yeah, I helped him here and there too
Yeah.
because he never was very good at making money.
But he was happy,
Yeah.
which that's really what it's all about. So I want to kind of ask this question here. You know, if people look at the zoomed out version of your story, you're right. It sounds like, oh, a tough childhood, but then he had all of the success. But you were conned out of your money. You had an unfair deal with a business partner. There was a fire, lawsuits. I mean, this was no easy path.
A lot
What
of
was
lawsuits.
your spiritual life like during these trials over and over again?
Well, I think I was always in a state of satisfying grace.
Mm,
And that was my big goal in life. And that was my first goal. It was my first priority, the spiritual one.
wow.
Just plain don't commit any mortal sins and get
Yeah.
the confession regularly. And so that's probably the biggest accomplishment in my life. And I'm not sure it's true. I give myself a little benefit of the doubt here. So I went to Mass every Sunday. I went to confess periodically. Uh, I was certainly faithful in my marriage. I heard that Don Shula, after he had the perfect season, that he went to Mass every day. And that's something I always wanted to do. I said, someday when I have enough time, I'll do it. Uh, and I figured, what's my excuse? I mean, here's the winningest coach in college football, and he goes to Mass every day. And of course, Lombardi did, and a lot of other great coaches. But so I figured, I ought to be able to do it if he can. So I started going every day. And
Yeah.
that was a big turnaround in my life. And I noticed later, I didn't realize at the time, but that was about 72, 73.
Wow.
1980, my business took off. It was the fastest growing restaurant chain in history. And
Wow.
we were open 3 stores a day at one point. Um, and everything started getting better for me when I started going to Mass every day. And
Mm,
that was probably one of those early daily Masses. The priest talked about Our Lady's appearances and asking us to say the rosary. And I never said the rosary, except at funerals and uh, did it all the time in the orphanage. But I said, well, she went through all that trouble, and that's her message. How can I deny the Mother of God? And at least take 15 minutes to say a rosary every day.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it ever since. And
Wow.
and for years, multiple rosaries, 3, 4 a day. I've never missed. Even when I was in the hospital, almost dying, I didn't miss saying the rosary. Couldn't go to
Wow.
mass, but I could say so. And that was just a big, another big spiritual step for me. Then I went to Medjugorje, and that was probably one of the top spiritual moments of my life when I was in this little room during your apparition. And that was in the early days when it was started, just started, it was under communism then.
Mm. Wow. And what's so beautiful is it wasn't anything, you didn't see it happening because it was God working through you. And I have had a experience where I started going probably 2 years ago to mass, to morning mass before work. And I had a similar moment where like a year had passed and I was like, wow, that really does make a difference. But you don't see it in the moment. You just kind of make it part of the routine and you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, even this week had been a crazy week and I went to mass this morning and I had missed a few days and I was like, holy moly, you just feel like you could breathe again.
Yeah, my staff knows that on my schedule there better be a mass on there every day, no matter where I'm at in the world.
Yeah.
And when I'm at a traveling somewhere, just before Uber, I'd have the cab driver take me to mass from my hotel, and I have him wait for me and run the meter while I'm at mass, because
Yeah.
you can't get where you got to get a cab outside some church.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Well, that's beautiful to hear that even when you're going through all of those trials, that you stayed steadfast, continued to show up for God, and it clearly and clearly He was blessing a lot of what was happening. I'd love for you to share the story of. You mentioned you were married to Margie for almost 61 years. I think the story of when you first asked her out is hilarious.
Well, I was very shy with girls, uh, and I really didn't date for that reason, and also because I was working all the time and didn't have any time. But at my second store in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, at Central Michigan University, uh, uh, I was working 7 days a week again,
Mm.
and I was training somebody to take my place so I could get back to Ypsilanti to keep an eye on our first store. And I just wanted to get out of the store. It was slow. They had an order there. I said, I'm going to take it. So I delivered the pizza. It was to, I forgot the name of the dorm. Uh, and the girl at the switchboard became my wife. She was as cute as a bug ear. I couldn't take my eyes off her. In those days, you couldn't go to the room. You had to wait at the desk while the customer came down and picked up their
Yeah.
pizza. And and so I'm trying to strike up a conversation, getting nowhere. She's not the talkative type. And then I got back to the door. I'm driving back. And I'm singing. And I was so happy. I said, I got to. So I got back to the dorm. I asked the guy if he's ready to give me a night off. He said yes. I knew he wasn't, but I didn't care. I got on the phone uh, and to the dorm, and I got the girl to the switchboard, and I asked her if she'd go to the movie with me next Monday. It's her slowest day. And she said, "Who are you?" I'm the guy that just delivered the pizza. And are you some kind of kook? I no, I just told her what I was wearing, and and uh, and she said, "Oh, I just came on duty." She said, "Who'd you replace?" So she told me the name of that girl, Bonnie Hula. So would you ring her for me? Well, I got my nerve up again. I call her. I said, "Bonnie, yeah, I'm the guy that delivered the pizza." And, she said, "Who are you?" I didn't know what you're talking about. And he said, "Oh, I had this other girl substitute for me." So I said, "Well, what's?" So apparently, she was on the list. So, uh, so who substitute? So she gave me the name. So I try again. I tried one more time, and she said yes, she'd go to the movie with me. And
Hmm.
and on the second date, I drank beer back then, and we went to a pizza place after the movie, and I had a beer, and she didn't like beer, so she said maybe I'll try some wine. So she had So she ordered wine on the rocks, which I've never heard of before or since. It was some kind of red wine and crushed ice. And I'm looking across to her, and something about drinking a half a glass of wine, her face just glowed and let him look at those blue eyes, and that was it. So the next day I showed up with an engagement ring, and I didn't have a lot of money, but uh, I knew the jeweler because I owned a newsstand on the corner, the main corner in Ann Arbor, and I hawked papers. And he used to buy a paper every day. He was always a nice guy and
Yeah.
nice to me, so he at least recognized me. So I went over there. I said, I don't have any money. I want to marry this girl. Could you sell me a engagement ring with no money down? He said, sure. I bought a $400 ring, half a carat, with no money down, walked out that stuff. Didn't sign anything. And then the next day I handed her the ring and she basically said no, but she took the ring. She said, I'll think about it. And
Yeah.
I badgered her every day, and after a week she caved in.
Oh my gosh. It's just hilarious. Did she keep that same ring?
It eventually wore out.
It did wear out. Okay. So
Yeah,
she
I brought her
upgraded.
an eight and a half carat heart-shaped diamond.
Okay, so she got a big upgrade. She wasn't that sad when it wore out.
Well, the amazing thing about her, that type of thing didn't mean anything to her.
I remember I heard that in the book, and
She
that's
was the most,
beautiful.
she could care less about keeping up with the Jones.
Yeah.
We started out in a little trailer and had to wash our clothes at a laundromat and clipping coupons. She didn't buy a new dress for 10 years, except
Wow.
maternity dresses. I mean, she was just didn't never asked for anything.
Yeah.
Um, this amazing woman.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I mean, that's especially someone that went from quote unquote rags to riches, having that quality was probably certainly
Well, she
helpful.
came from a middle class family.
Yeah.
She wasn't, so I was afraid she wouldn't be able to come down to my standard, but she had no problem.
Oh, that's beautiful. Hmm. Okay, so now I want to kind of going off of this. You now you're seeing a lot of success in Domino's, but you were open about you read Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I've heard a lot of people have crazy spiritual shifts in their life when they read this book. I would love for you to tell us about that experience because then it really shaped the trajectory of your life.
Well, what led up to that, all of a sudden, uh, going from a guy who's struggling to survive to being a billionaire,
Yeah.
and then from eight to somewhere around maybe 85, I was probably worth well over $1 billion. And
Yeah.
there were many billionaires then.
Yeah, I want to emphasize
Maybe,
that. 1985.
now there's about 3,000 of them.
Oh,
Uh, there's probably a dozen or so. So
yeah.
I was, uh, then of course I bought the Tigers, won the World Series the first year. I was the ultimate Richard Alpert story from the orphanage to a billionaire. And I was getting all kinds of offers, interviews, and all kinds of awards,
Yeah.
honorary degrees. I got 13 honorary degrees. Uh, and even though I'm still a freshman in college, and I ran a university. Uh,
And you had yachts, you had
yeah,
cars.
but I justified everything.
Yeah.
I use the yachts as incentive for our high performers and Domino's. The planes because the time is money, and I ended up with an Air Force of my own, uh, and a lodge up on Drummond Island, which beautiful lodge, built a golf course. This was for R&R for our Domino's people, and that was also for me, but I didn't say that. And I had one of the largest car collections in the world. I broke all kinds of records of the prices I paid for collector cars. Um, um, uh, and then I read C.S. Lewis. And there's
Hmm.
a chapter on pride. And I've always uh, felt a fault I had all my life was uh, wanting to impress people. I don't know where that came from, whether it's because I didn't have anything or maybe I had a lot of imagination. I don't know. I never liked show offs. And I always tried to be humble, act humble, but when I read C.S. Lewis, I said I was a closet show off, and I couldn't sleep. And I said, and I had all these toys I bought. I just decided I'm not going to have any ostentatious luxuries. I'll have conveniences. After all, I am married. In fact, my wife had a Jaguar and a Cadillac, and I wasn't going to drive a luxury car anymore. Uh, and I said, honey, maybe get rid of those and maybe get a Buick and a Mercury or something. He said, you took the vow, I didn't. The millionaire's vow of poverty. Uh, and so I was building a huge house. Uh, it was probably going to cost me $35 million back then by one of the world's greatest architects. And I stopped that house. I was a third of the way through it. And got rid of all the cars, got rid of all the toys, even started flying commercial and flying tourists. So
What a
it was a
shift.
big relief. It was, and I look back and all I can think of is it had to be the devil because it was so stupid,
Hmm.
so stupid. And that's what C.S. Lewis says. You don't want more. You want more than anybody else. And that's what hit me
Mm.
between the eyes.
Wow. Wow. Well, I could see how when you were saying I was able to justify it. I mean, I think I am not a billionaire on a smaller scale. It is easy sometimes when we slip into the routine of our faith. It's like, well, I go to church every day, I'm praying my rosary. And so
And I did all
sometimes,
that.
yeah, you were doing all of that. And if anything, you're like, look at God, look at what we're creating together. And in
And I
some
was giving
cases,
money away to a lot of Catholic projects, pro-life projects, and things
right.
like that, before I settled down
Yeah.
on
So you
education.
were doing good, but you wanted to go deeper. You were being challenged to go one step further.
Yeah, I was really walking a tightrope too. And
Mm,
and at one point I thought, what I'm really trying to do is being a billionaire saint.
mm.
And
I love that. Can we talk about the tightrope a little bit here now that you are able to reflect on all of this? What what advice do you have for how we should think about money? I mean, that's something that even in my own relationship, my fiance and I are discussing about jobs and what that would look like, and it's a tricky line. You need money, but money can't be the everything.
yeah, and then another thing about money is um, people don't need as much as they think they do.
Oh,
Uh, I gave a talk one time. I got a little flack for it. And there was a study at Harvard, I believe, that showed this back in the 60s, showed that you can feed a family of four like $68
a year?
a year. You have
Wow.
to be creative. You have
Yeah.
to go to the farmer's market and buy oats by the bushel and uh, a bag of powdered milk that you generally use for feeding calves when you're making veal,
Mm,
and things like that, and getting vegetables during season and growing some of your own and things like that. But today you could probably do it for uh, $400 or $500
yeah.
and eat better than the average person health wise.
Right. Right. So is it I guess my question is when you are aspiring for things, let's say you are a businessman and like you're aspiring for success in some ways. Is there a way that you were able to kind of check in to see, okay, am I aspiring for this for the right reasons? If that makes sense, because of course, like we want to still have Catholic CEOs that are really good, like-minded people in the church, such as yourself.
Hmm. Well, I don't know if I can make sense out of the way I do it, but I
Yeah.
want to be an architect, and it's been my hobby my whole life.
Mm,
Um, And when that disappeared, here I am. I'm 24 years old and still a freshman, uh, and I'm head over heels in debt in the business. Then my uh, dreams had to shift,
yeah.
and they and uh, and when that first store became successful, and I opened the second one right away in Mount Pleasant. That was much more successful than the first one. I'm in the library in the reference section, getting the names of every college in the country that has dorms over 1,000 in the dorm because that was my market, the
Mm,
delivering pizzas to the dorms, and there was about 200 such schools, and I found out everything I could about them, and and then I started opening stores in those schools.
mm.
So I was off to the races. People say, "Do you ever think you're going to be a successful jury?" I thought I'd be a lot more successful. If I wouldn't have gotten off track in the late '80s, I would have. I mean, I created the pizza delivery market, and
Yeah.
others just get into it. I basically had a monopoly, and I think it was '85. We had 54% of all the pizzas delivered in the United States,
Wow.
and we were just
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know in the book you had even said too, part of the justification was, well, someone needs to pay for the churches,
Uh,
which
Yeah,
is true.
and that's what I wanted to do too. And that was my
Yeah.
justification. And I believe that good Catholic should try to make as much money as they can, but it shouldn't be for the just have your basic needs. There's an old saying it's the three S's in a person's life. One is survive, the second one is save, and the third one is serve.
Mm,
And I think that's the way people's life ought to be. Uh, First, get established. Uh, get your down payment on the house, get your career going, and save some money, and then when your kids are growing up, uh, start serving others and be
yeah.
in the position to do it.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that because it's so important because you even said, well, and I know you were said the people were kind of taking some heat when you had said, well, we don't all need to be living off of that. But especially with social media, it's such a culture of keeping up with the Joneses, but escalated where you're online, you see, I saw a post about kids' birthday parties are costing like $1,000. And it's like,
Mm.
does the 1-year-old's birthday party need to cost $1,000?
Yeah, it's not your money.
Right. And that's the other thing too. It's all a gift from God. And that's what I love about your story is it was so clear that from the very beginning, God knew exactly what he was going to do with your life.
And all these luxuries didn't bring a handhill of happiness. Maybe
Hmm.
just a momentary rush, and then it's on to the next thing. It's uh, it's just plain foolish,
Mm.
stupid.
And there's not many people in this world that could say that has had everything and
Yeah,
could
I've
say,
experienced it. Yeah,
right.
I've experienced it. I could have anything I wanted. Uh,
Yeah.
the, and I had a lot of them. I had big yachts. I had a Gulfstream. I had a big Sikorsky chopper. I had this lodge up on Drummond Island that was the ultimate rustic elegance you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, and
Didn't mean a
been
thing.
traveling all over the world, staying, and I was probably the best dressed man in the country because I really got into fashion. That's a whole different subject, but
Yeah.
uh, it's just another way of outperforming the competition. When
Yeah.
people dress up, they perform better. And a lot of
Mm.
research shows that. So at Domino's, you wore a coat and tie. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've read Success, what's the name of the book? Dress for Success.
Yeah.
I've read that many times. I brought in the author of consulting, and he designed our delivery uniforms. Um,
Really.
uh, because uh, generally, and I don't know about today with fashion, the way it's going, and people not wearing ties, but in his research would show that there's 20% improvement in performance if you dress up over not dress over dressing casually.
I believe this. I believe this. I do love comforting clothes, comfortable clothes. But I do believe that, especially I remember as a student, if you had an exam, we'd always dress up for our exam because we thought we'd do better.
Well, people treat you better when you dress up.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
you instinctively treat them better.
It's
Um,
true. That's true. We mentioned it and at the height of this when you're dressed nicely, you have all these things. You kind of went over it that you won the World Series. Did that bring you happiness? I feel like that was a happy moment, right?
Oh yeah, that was. I mean, uh, to sit there in the stadium with all the fans outside around the stadium hollering uh, and being there with the manager, the president, and a few of the old time Tigers that were friends, Charlie Gehringer, Al Kaline, and some others in the office. And just I'm thinking, I own this team. You know, I just I'm not even 50 years old yet. You know, and
Right.
um,
Right.
it was.
Oh,
But so what?
yeah. Yeah. But was your dad a Tigers fan?
Oh, I'm sure he was. He was because he lived in Michigan
Yeah.
and he played. And I knew that he was a good player because and I knew he played baseball because I had a picture of him in a
Mm.
baseball uh, uh, suit on. And one of my customers in my first store uh, found out my name was Monaghan. He says, I used to play baseball with a guy by the name of Monaghan.
Mm.
And I said, oh, that's probably my dad. He played baseball. And I assume he was a catcher because the picture had him holding the catcher's mitt. And he was a big guy. So catchers are big guys. And he said, oh, he's a catcher. I know, he was our top pitcher.
Wow. Wow. Well, I bet he was just smiling down on you when those Tigers won. That would be such a
Yeah.
surreal moment. Okay, as we're sort of wrapping up our conversation here, I would love I have two last questions. What are some of the important practices there then that you could share with us to help us all on our own journeys?
Hmm. Well, I think my five priorities are uh, the greatest thing I've ever came up with. I learned much later that Socrates said kind of the same thing. He said the four criteria for happiness are learning, friends, health, and wealth. So I left out the spiritual.
Mm.
Uh, but he didn't prioritize them like I did. I think there's a hierarchy there, although they overlap. So I think that when I came up with that, my self-image up to that time, I was pretty much a loser. That gave me a roadmap for life, uh,
Wow.
and 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 it meant also I could make as much money as I wanted, and uh, and uh, and it would be for good, not just for selfishness.
Right, right. Because it was that financial health, and it really leads back to what you said, the survive, save, and serve.
Mm.
I'm
And
gonna
I always
remember
felt
both of
that
those.
people shouldn't, but they do respect people that are successful financially.
Yeah,
And you shouldn't, but if you get into that situation, if you say something, uh, they'll be more likely to accept it.
yeah,
And what I would say is my five priorities.
yeah. I really I love those priorities as someone who's constantly being like, what's my movement of the day? What am I doing spiritually today? It's very, very grounding.
Mhm.
So we have now dedicated your life to Catholic education with the creation of Ave Maria University. And I know that we couldn't even get through all of this. There's just so much here. But I would love for you to share out of all the endeavors, is there something that you're most proud of?
Well, I'm ashamed of most of them
Hmm.
because they're not at the level I want them to be. Yeah, Ave Maria is uh, in many ways the best Catholic university in the country in terms of things that I would measure vocations, uh, 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 great marriages amongst classmates, uh, and uh, uh, our doctorate in theology as students teaching at seminaries and Catholic universities. Uh, uh, but it could have been a lot more if I wouldn't have had that little lapse in the late 80s where I got off track. I actually almost lost the business and I had
Hmm.
to rebuild it in 91, 92, 93 and sold it in 98. So I'm not too proud of what I accomplished. I'm disappointed. Um,
Hmm.
and another thing that you didn't mention that I think is important is Legatus. This is an
Thank you.
organization for Catholic CEOs, and I started in 1987, and I'm still heavily involved in that. And that is trying to get Catholics to uh, live those priorities and be better Catholics. That's the only purpose of Legatus, is to help the members be better Catholics and help each other be better Catholics. A lot of through peer support and the kind of speakers we have and the kind of retreats and so on we have. And getting the people that are the most proven leaders in the Catholic Church and helping them get more and fired up about their faith. And that has sort of a modification effect. So I don't know where that is in importance in the things I've done or not, but it's I think it's pretty important.
And certainly important. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that. That's a big part of what you've created and helping get more and more people to heaven. You know, when I look at shortcomings and seasons that I've struggled, that God has used those still to either shape and form me or bring goodness. Mr. Monaghan, you're kind of hard on yourself.
Well, well, I'll tell you, I am probably pretty good when I'm in trouble. Why do I get in that trouble?
Wow. Well, this has been just such a joy to chat with you and to learn from you and your incredible career and your continued career ahead. So I just really want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share some of your wisdom.
Thank you very much. It's been enjoyable.